My name's Becky. You might know me from my Instagram account, So Much More. And this is my garden here in Hampshire. It's a suburban garden and I only moved here just under 2 years ago. When we moved in, this whole patch was rubble and a few plastic raised beds, mainly weeds. And last year, when I first moved in, I decided that I didn't have time to revamp the garden, so I cleared the weeds and used the beds as they were, added a little bit of compost. And this year in winter, I decided that everything was coming out, so I completely flattened this whole area and built all of these raised beds from materials that I could get my hands on for free. So I got some concrete blocks from various different building projects. I got some old scaffold boards from Facebook Marketplace and put together these raised beds almost for free. And I finished in about February. It took me most of January and a little bit of February. And by March started planting, and this is it in September. I have been wanting to get my own piece of land to grow more food on since as long as I can remember. My parents had a vegetable patch, my grandparents had a vegetable patch, and I've always wanted to grow food because to me it's the most sustainable use of a piece of land. If I have stewardship over a piece of land, then I want to use it in the best way possible. So if I can grow my own food and reduce my carbon footprint of what I'm eating and increase biodiversity and encourage wildlife into my garden, whilst also getting delicious ingredients to cook with and feed my children really nutritious food, then that just seems like the perfect outcome for me. So my garden here is about 120 square metres, which is not big. It's about the size of an average suburban garden. And I really like to cram everything in. So I like to use tall things next to short things, make sure that when something is going to be coming to the end of cropping that I've got something else to go in to replace it with. And I like to constantly have a supply of seedlings so that if there's any empty spaces come up in my beds, I've got something to put in there to fill that in. I'm not very good at planning because I usually like to sit down and make a plan and then throw it out the window and just go with whatever I feel like at the time. It's important to me that it looks nice as well because this is my garden at the end of the day, and when I have friends around, they come and enjoy my garden and we sit out and we have a cup of tea or something. So I still need this to be a functioning space for me. So I like it to look nice. I like to cram a lot of food in there, and I think in this space I grow approximately 85 to 90% of my family's fruit and veg. So it was never really much of a choice for me as to whether to grow organic or not. I studied ecology at university and I've always had a real passion for the environment and saving the world. So for me, understanding a little bit about the way that ecosystems work and the soil works, there was never any question as to whether I was going to be organic or not. And what I try to do on my Instagram is to teach people about organic gardening, and mainly the reasons why it's important to garden organically. Not only is it sustainable for the world, but it's also easier for us as gardeners, saves us an awful lot of money, and we get really, really good results, providing that we are looking after the soil, and that's all it really comes down to. So I decided to start doing something called Sunday Science because in my head it's quite fun to impart scientific wisdom on people when they might be hungover. So basically it was a way of me being able to cover a subject as succinctly as possible and give people some information and teach them a little bit about plants, and not how to grow them, but actually how they work themselves. It's really important that I have a good soil structure and a soil with lots of nutrients that are available to the plants. And it's the microbiology in the soil that feeds these nutrients to the plants. And I'm talking about fungi and about soil bacteria and all the other things that live inside soil, like earthworms as well. These are the things that, if we look after them by feeding them compost, they will cycle those nutrients back to our plants. And plants are pretty incredible too, because the carbohydrates that they make from photosynthesis, they send down through their roots back to the microbiology in the soil as well to feed that. So what we end up with is a cycle where the plants are feeding the microbes are feeding the plants, and we end up with healthy soil and healthy plants. All we have to do is not mess up the balance and try and keep roots in the soil as much as possible, so that we've always got something pumping that carbon into the ground. So one of the things that I started to learn and to understand when I looked more closely into ecology and into gardening is that gardening really could solve a lot of the world's problems. If more people were to grow their own food, then we could reduce the carbon impact from large-scale agriculture, we could increase biodiversity, we could improve our own mental health by spending more time outside, we could have more healthy, nutritious food, and we could improve our community feel as well by bartering and trading foods and enjoying living in a neighbourhood with people who also grow food. And it's a really empowering thing knowing that even if the entire world falls down around your ears, you can still feed yourself and your family. So after I studied ecology at university, one of my first jobs was working in large-scale agricultural farms, and all I could think every day was, I'm wandering through these ecological deserts that are growing food, but it's low nutrient food, the soil's really poor, and a lot of it's going to feed animals rather than humans. And it's got me to thinking about how we could change things so that we can have more nutritious food, we can feed more people, and we can reduce our impact on the environment. And one thing that I really would like people to know, and that I'm really keen to impart on people when I talk to them or rant at them, is the importance of growing organically, and how even just growing a small amount of food makes a huge difference to your impact on the environment. And if you can buy local as well as growing a bit of your own food, then you're going to make a huge difference to how you are impacting the planet.